Okay. I don't have to show up there and fucking kick anybody in the
No, I
face.
feel most people just
I know. I
and then
know.
they're like, you just have like work here.
Yeah.
Come direct.
No.
Have fun.
Yeah.
You don't just send me an email saying, oh, I need this.
No, I know. I thought I misunderstood. I think she wants to do like a virtual one on October 9th.
Right.
And then I'll post that on my Zoom and do the stacks. But I thought she needed it for here. And I was like, telling Erin, I was like, oh yeah, da. And she said, no. It's always better. I said, okay. But anyway, it's just good to have eyes on you. See you. It's been like years now.
Yeah, and we probably got all of that on the lunch.
Oh, good. Oh, God.
Hi, Cassie.
goodbye. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Someday you wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dare to, oh why can't I? Oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, the dreams that you dare to, why, oh why can't I?
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome today to the celebration of Bob Devine's life. My name is Margaret. I'm Callie's sister. And I'm going to try not to cry. So Bob loved creating community, so take a moment to say hello to your neighbor. And remember, yes. And say hello to those attending remotely. Hello out there. Yes. We know Bob's older brothers and his son Jesse and their families are also attending. So I'm going to take a moment to acknowledge Bob's extended family. Let's hold them in the light in the way that we do in Quaker circles. So my job here is to just lay out what we're doing today. So after me, we're going to hear a wonderful blessing and land acknowledgement, and followed by remarks by some of Bob's closest friends who are here. And then all are welcome to speak at that point. Please provide comments that are brief, and laughter, tears, also fine, poetry, singing. We will be each celebrating Bob in our own way. I think the thing that sometimes we remind folks is after someone speaks, leave a time for silence so we can remember and ponder what they have said. Two more things. I have a mic since we want everyone to hear, so when you speak, it would be great if you could stand and one of our folks who's out there will bring a mic to you. And after the approximate 1 hour at the appropriate time, Callie will signal the conclusion of our celebration by shaking hands with those next to her. So we'll look to Callie to call the conclusion. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many people's faces that I know. I had to write this down because I was driving yesterday from Minnesota, and I was thinking about the Midwest and Bob's love of music, and just got pretty teary-eyed that whole drive, which made it a lot more entertaining than looking at Indiana. So how do I get rid of that echo? Behind or in front of the speaker? Okay, I'm just going to go over here then. So just some quick housekeeping. There's a bathroom on the second floor. You can take the stairs or the elevator. And let's keep our masks on unless we're speaking with the microphone. So my name is Shelby. I know a lot of you, but it's nice to meet new faces too. I'm the class of 2005 graduate. I'm a former community manager, and I'm currently the chair of the Antioch College Board. And just a Bob devotee, I think. Before I speak, I wanted to briefly share an excerpt from the college's land acknowledgement statement that Indigenous leaders here at the college, as well as surrounding areas, worked on to have. So please join us as we recognize and acknowledge that Ohio and the Midwest were built on the indigenous homelands of the good and many people of the Osage, the Miami, the Shawnee Nations, and the Adena and Hopewell's people, and many other Algonquin-speaking bands. Today, the college is located on the unceded land of these people, and we acknowledge these communities, their elders, past and present, as well as future generations. Like many people in this room today, Bob Devine changed my life. He is perhaps the first person I ever met who seemed to legit know something about everything, quite literally. He introduced me to the women of COM, which was Denny Eagleson, Ann Boleyn, Chris Hill, and Ann Philmeyer, who was my advisor, and the rest was history. Much of how Bob mentored me was on the bench outside of the main building, debating shared governance, or standing in the doorway of his office in South as we shared our love of music. Bob was the first person I ever met who seemed to love and consume music as much as I did. It made me happy beyond measure to talk for hours with him. I know Bob's classes changed lives of generations of Antiochians. I still use my media and social change syllabus. It's like the paper version. I just carry it around like every state I've lived in. And if you were fortunate enough to have him as your college president, he likely fed you pizza on more than one occasion and created a sense of shared responsibility at every level of his beloved Antioch. The impact Bob has left on generations of students, staff, and faculty is felt deeply to this day. When I was the community manager during some of Antioch's most challenging years prior to the closure, Bob could see that leading community meeting was taking a toll on me, both mentally and physically. He took me on a walk and told me on what to focus on. He said, scan the room, keep a stack, and always tell people the truth, even if it's hard. He told me if I got lost, I could look at him and find him and he would be right there. So every Tuesday at 3 p.m. that year, I'd look out and see Bob giving me his classic Bob grin, and I knew it would be okay. Before we watch a video from Ann Philmeyer, who I know he loved very dearly, who couldn't be here, I wanted to take a moment to thank Callie and all of Bob's kids for sharing your father and your husband so graciously with us for many years. Bob was the father to many of us who needed one, the educator that we all deserved, and the leader who changed so many people's life. I am so sorry for your loss, and I hope you feel the love here today as we celebrate and grieve Bob's life. Thanks.
Hi, I'm so sad that I'm not there with all of you today. But with COVID and my leadership role at the college, it just wasn't feasible after all, even though I booked my flight and hope to come. So I miss you. I miss that I'm not there with you to hold and connect as we reflect on this kind of amazing human being that touched our lives. And all of us, have our own part of the complex, crystal that was Bob Devine. We have the facets that we encountered and related to, and those aspects of him that touched us. And I just want to, share some of my perspectives, my experience, because for me, Bob was definitely a spark. He lit some things up in me. And I know that he served in that way for many, many people, a spark of awakening, an invitation. And I want to share some of those stories and how we met. And the other things that I know about Bob. I know that Bob had a deep soul. It was like an underground river. It directed his life from a deep interior space. And I know that about him. I felt that. I connected with him about that in a very nonverbal way. It wasn't like we ever talked about it, but it was there. And it was a knowing we had about each other, that we were actually directed from a deep inner place, that was somewhat inexplicable. Maybe because we're both Pisces, I don't know, but Bob also had a really wicked sense of humor, and I want to share at least one of those stories. So here's a little bit of my reflection about this incredible, complex, rich, multifaceted, and inspiring human being. I first met Bob in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I was a community activist, an organizer, a poet, a teacher, very engaged in change action at the community level in the city and county of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And Bob took a job to open up the cable access when cable came, and to educate the community about how we might use what he called narrowcasting, a term I'd never heard. I'd only ever heard broadcasting, and reach and affect strategies to use communications media as a strategy in the community for organizing and change. And I was absolutely drawn to that. So I show up at this meeting, this packed meeting in this room at the offices of MATA, and here's this guy. He's got a very, very short haircut. He's very straight looking. He's got like a suit and a tie, and he looks like a banker to me. And I was a young activist, and I was like, what? And I was like, okay, and he had this flip chart, and there was all this very neat printing in different colors of magic marker, highlighting and emphasizing different things. And then he began this lecture, flipping the flip chart pages and just driving down this very radical analysis of the power of media in communities and what it meant for people to have voice, have access. Access was the key word, and make and produce programming by the community, for the community, about the community, right? So here's this radical thinker dressed like a banker, and I'm thinking, God, is he dressed like that because he has to raise funds, or because he's an executive director, or maybe he's just really tricky because he's actually got this very radical analysis, which later I learned came from his education at Antioch College, his involvement at Antioch, and his being a leader in the cable access movement about the radical potential of cable access to be utilized for communities to talk to each other, to talk to themselves about what mattered to them, and to make change accordingly. So I got really involved at MATA, as the cable access company was called, and I got involved with Bob. I got inspired. It was a spark of awakening. How could I make programming that made a difference in the community that I loved and cared about? Bob got a job at Antioch College and was invited back by then President Al Guskin to head up the communications program, to revive it. And when they left, jokingly, I said, hey, when you have an opening at Antioch, remember me, call me. Because Antioch, I always knew, was this really important, innovative space in higher education. And though I didn't go there, I felt kinship with their approach. And I worked with Bob at Antioch for 15 years. And, you know, he was really a mentor for me about the creativity of curriculum development and curriculum design, and the possibility of like engaging with students at this very profound level, like that deep soul, that river that runs underneath. What is the passion, and how can I serve as a spark of awakening? How did I learn and see from him, like, make it personal and political, make it mean something, engage in meaning making with your students and encourage their creativity, and be creative yourself, be inspired, be on fire. And that was a great invitation that has carried me. That set the course of really my adult life in higher education, which I have continued in now for 31 years. And I just wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be where I am if he hadn't given me that opportunity. As I worked with him, he went on into leadership, and I began to see what kind of integrity and what kind of challenge to take on leadership in a complex community like Antioch, a place fraught with lots of opinions, conflict, you know, all of this. I used to say, you know, the only kind of crisis we have is a crisis of communication. So it makes sense that communications professor becomes, you know, a leader in that community, a dean, and then a president. I learned a lot from him, watching him manage and handle complex situations, and really relying on his inner guide, his inner knowing, and his instinct for acting out of his values, acting out of his commitments. You know, he held himself accountable down. In lots of hierarchies, people hold themselves accountable up to the power ahead, in that case, the board of trustees as president. But he always held himself accountable to the students. He looked to the students for where to get direction, what mattered, what needed to be addressed. And how to gauge what needed to happen next. And I learned that from him. I watched him do that. You know, when I took on leadership, which I also went into higher education leadership at Antioch, a very complex place to do that. I became associate dean and then dean vice president. And I remember when I went into that leadership role and I sat at the desk of Horace Mann, the founder, you know, and I was suddenly in that office suite with the president, and he was no longer the president at this point. But he came to me and he gave me this little sculpture of a frog. And I was like, thanks, Bob, you know, and he goes, Anne, there was a Roman governor at an outpost in the Roman Empire, and he had his people bring him a frog on a plate every morning, and he swallowed the frog first thing in the morning. And then he said, nothing worse than that can happen to me today. So I give you this frog, you know, and in preparation for the unknowns that lie ahead, you know, the unknowns in your everyday life that will be in your, you know, who comes into your office or what shows up that you need to address, right? So if you swallow the frog first thing, nothing weirder and worse than that can happen, you know. And that's his wicked humor. I mean, that was just so silly. And also, I set that little frog on my desk at Antioch College, and I looked at it every day when the craziest stuff would, you know, show up that I needed to address, and I'd remember that story. And I'll always remember that story, you know. So thank you, Bob, you know, thank you for helping me become who I am, for inspiring me, for giving me a chance. And Callie, you know, thank you for your role in this. And I wish I was there literally just to hold you. You know, when Callie called me and told me Bob had passed, I'd been following things with him on Facebook, part of his Facebook audience, reading his memoir, reading his sharing, and tracking that his health was really challenging. But the day after Callie called me, I went out here. I'm in my cabin in the forest outside of Santa Fe up in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. And I have a little prayer circle, a space that I go every day that I've marked with the directions with stones that I found here on the land. And there's a number of ponderosa pines there in the ponderosa pine forest here where I live. And there was a standing dead tree that had been there since I lived here. And that tree fell. That tree fell down. And I know a lot of traditional beliefs, and one of them is that when a great person passes out of this life, a tree falls in the forest. And that happened. I witnessed that. I went out to my prayer circle the day after Callie called me, and one of that standing dead tree had fallen. It had fallen right onto another tree that caught it and had kind of bent. And there I stood witness to this knowing, this old belief. And I said, okay, Bob, I know you've made your passage to spirit, and whatever that is, whatever that means, I know we're still in relationship. I believe that, and I feel that. And so it is that wherever and however that is, we are connected. We will always be connected. And I hope that you and your relationship to Bob feel the same way. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share today. Much, much love.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Emeritus, and although I never graduated, Bob always perceived me to be an alumni, even after I left. And I actually jokingly said to him when I did leave, I'm going to UCLA. I'm going to the University of the corner of Lenox Avenue. And I'm going to go get my PhD in baseball. When I first met Bob here, and I have to say, my first year at Antioch was not a happy year. I took a couple of ed classes, and the education professor was against community control and decentralization of schools. I was like, that doesn't sound like Antioch. And the film department was a little weird for me. Yeah, thank you. And so I ended up spending most of my time in the gym shooting baskets. But I was walking across campus, and I went into the library, and I went up to the second floor, and that's where I met Bob. And he introduced himself, and he asked me who I was, and I told him I wasn't really happy. And he said, well, listen, when you come back in the fall, if you come back in the fall, come up to the library. I think we have some things here that you'll enjoy. And so, when I went up to the library in the fall, Bob was the closest person I'd ever met who could give Willy Wonka a run for his money. And what he created on the second floor of the library was like the chocolate factory. And every kid, because we were kids back then, opinionated kids, we were kids. And every kid was like we had a golden ticket. And we could spend that time up in that library. Bob was sweet enough to also just give me a key to the library late at night so I could watch West Coast NBA basketball games. Used to go in the back where the entrance was, in the parking lot. Bob also knew that I was a New Direction student, which I always thought was weird. It made me feel like I was a new movement in jazz. It's like there was the avant-garde, there was bebop, and then a group of kids came to Antioch and they were New Direction students. But he never treated me as a New Directions exotic. He knew I was from the South Bronx, he knew I was Afro Latino, we talked about that, but he never ever really kind of treated me like that exotic kid in Ohio, from the South Bronx. Bob is responsible for some amazing aspects of my life. I don't know, because for the media folks here, TV, do you remember when they came to Antioch? And we were all really impressed with them, and the things they were doing. They showed their TV goes to the Super Bowl, and they showed their TV thing at the Democratic Convention from '72. And, they had a Q&A session afterwards. And I asked them, directly, I said, so like, because they were all white. And I asked them, I said, so like, you have any like black people who farm with you? You have any like people of color? You have any like Latino people? And this was the answer I got. I said, well, we really don't think race is that important. That's not really an issue for us. We're really more about the process and storytelling. And I said, okay, that's not happening. And this was close to the end. And I think Bob sensed that, Bob knew that, and Bob pulled out a copy for me, because he had a copy of Cuba the People, which was produced by DCTV. And when I saw that, to me that was like, that's what independent media is, at least a little bit. Bob said, you should go do a co-op. So literally, I've been here for 2 days, and it's been like a nostalgia trip like crazy. So I remember I went into Antioch Hall, used the public phone booth down there in the lobby, called BCTV. I had my interview for my co-op there. I went and I did my co-op in New York City. And in 2 weeks, I went from Senior Avenue to the Democratic Convention. And I stayed for the summer co-op. I was like, I'm not going back. I stayed there, did a double co-op. Anybody remember double co-ops? I did a double co-op in the winter. I came back, I got my stuff, and I said to Bob, I'm out. And also administration was saying that you either have to come back, man, or like we're gonna have you're gonna have to withdraw. I said, I'm out. I'm gonna stay at DCTV. It was everything I wanted to do. It didn't make any sense to stay here and get some initials after my name. And I left. I stayed at DCTV for 13 years. And DCTV took me all over the world, and I went to look for some other organizations and stuff like that. Bob was in Milwaukee. Bob also created Manhattan Neighborhood Network in New York City. I interviewed for a job there. I got hired. I worked there for a decade. And I have to thank Bob, because Bob was responsible for why my Social Security check is so large. Because at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, I made more money than I ever made in my life than working in El Salvador or working in Vietnam or working in any of those places that Bob inspired me to go. And that allows me to have a rent-stabilized apartment in Harlem. So I have to thank Bob for that. I'm going to say a few more things. I know what's going on. So Bob was like that important. You all can see the photographs of Bob as a baseball player and as a soccer player. Bob loved sports. Bob was an athlete. Bob had a mystical mind about athletes. He knew that sport was just another art form that allowed artists to express themselves in the most amazing and fantastic ways. Bob was, all of my later conversations with Bob were not so much about media. It was about his Cincinnati Reds, and they were about my San Francisco Giants. And we would go back and forth, sometimes late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Him usually complaining about the Reds, me usually pretty happy about the Giants. I want to close just with this poem. I did not write. As a teacher, Bob didn't believe that whole worlds are born in a person on a campus or in a 3-camera studio in 6 days, and then on the 7th day it's for resting. Bob came into this world to be the part of a continuing creation for himself and for his students. The proverb says, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." This is what he has been saying to all of us. So, what really matters? Ready or not, someday it will all come to an end. There will be no more sunrises, minutes, hours, or days. All the things we collected, whatever treasured or forgotten, will pass on to someone else. Our wealth, fame, temporal power will shrivel to irrelevance. It will not matter what we own or what we were owed. Our grudges, resentments, and frustrations and jealousies will finally disappear. So too our hopes, plans, wishes, and to-do lists. The wins and losses that once seemed so important will fade away. It won't matter where you came from or what side of the tracks you were brought up on. It won't matter if we were born beautiful or brilliant. Even our gender, our skin color will be irrelevant. So what will matter? How will we value our day? How will the value of our days be measured? What will matter is not what we bought, but what we built. Not what we got, but what we gave. What will matter is not our success, but our significance. What will matter is not what we learned, but what we taught. What will matter is every act of integrity, compassion, courage, or sacrifice that enriched, empowered, or encouraged others to emulate our example. What will matter is not our competence, but our character. What will matter is not how many people we knew, but how many people will feel a lasting loss when we are gone. What will matter is not our memories, but the memories that will live on in those that loved us. What will matter is how long we will be remembered, for whom and for what. Living a life that matters doesn't happen by accident. It's not a matter of circumstance, but of choice. Bob believed that in each of us, there is a photo, a film, a TV image to make. And if we don't release that into the universe itself will be immeasurably diminished. Embrace all the songs, media, styles, and genres that are out there. Release them, and Bob's spirit is encouraging you not to allow anything to rob you of that chance to do so. I just want to close. As we said, we can take our masks off, we'll be on the mic. Bob was a musician.
My name is Chaz, and I was in the class of '83 and 2000. You know there's a story, right? Wrote a song about it, you know. I came to Antioch at 18 years old, and I don't want to be melodramatic, but I did not have the happiest of childhoods. And I want to say that Bob Devine not only saw me, but he helped me see myself, right? I was fascinated in those classes. I think the thing that really got me was, I think it was called Make or Break or something like that, where he took 45 records and smashed them. No, it was called Smash and Trash. So he'd take these 45 records, and if he thought it was a hit, and everybody in the class thought it was a hit, it was a smash. Or it was trashed, and he would take the 45 and break it over the table. So in the room, the classroom, there were scores and scores and scores and scores of broken records, right? Bob, right? So I just have to say that, coming from Chicago, growing up in the 60s, being a black queer kid, coming to Antioch with no high school diploma, you know, to have someone look beyond all that and see you and see your worth, look beyond the pain, look beyond all the struggle that brought you to this place. You know, it was really miraculous. I really struggled here too. And so I left campus in 1983 without my Antioch diploma. But, you know, my higher power had a different plan. And Bob became president. He started a limited residency program, which allowed people like me who had a whole bunch of credits and no diploma to come back. And so my diploma has Bob Devine's name on it as president. And I'm so glad. So I don't want to ramble on because I can. And I too wrote a poem. It's called When Brilliance Sees You, an ode to Bob Devine. It greets you in tie and mixed-match shoes because it knows that fresh young minds await and precise attire is but folly. It makes the effort, yet stays focused on the toil. Brilliance sees the excitement in your eyes when your hope light sparkles and flickers. It sits you down and queries you with compliments. It cajoles deeper thought and meaning. It massages nuance and flair. It critiques with encouragement and reward like warm cookies. It watches you devour the same. Brilliance stands over you, patiently guiding you through the minutiae. It laughs at the idiosyncrasies and fragilities of the coil. It lectures about the importance of being gentle in frustrating moments. Brilliance shows you that vectors are like swords. It teaches you that sight, sound, and motion plot feelings and rigorous thought. It revels in beauty and allegory, nuance, research, and process. Brilliance liberates the tools of learning, doling them out like fish and bread. It wants melons and cucumbers for you. It vibrates with excitement at your every small success. It fiercely defends your narrative against institutional foolishness and cruelty. Brilliance reaches back and rescues you from the wreckage of your past. It watches you emerge from abject pain and suffering. Again, it stands before you, this time humble and delighted by mutuality. Brilliance transforms and rockets to the edge of the universe, leaving ever-widening galaxies of love and light. It does not fade. Brilliance does not perish in the dark. It illuminates the void. Brilliance holds a space for you and exalts you. It exalts your efforts. It stands by you, bolstering you, filling the weak spaces. It trusts you, honors you, bestowing you with namesake and spiritual responsibilities. Brilliance does not perish in the dark. It illuminates the void.
Hi, my name is Jane Garrison. I came to Antioch in 1980, working here, and I left in 2014. And I had the pleasure of counting Bob as a friend. And I also worked for Alan Guskin, who was Al was president of the university and the college, and left as chancellor. And he worked closely with Bob. And Al couldn't be here today, but he asked if I could read some comments from him, and I'm happy to do that. Bob and I began working together over 25 years ago, but it is easy to remember him and his devotion to the college and its students. I remember helping to recruit him as part of a wave of new faculty that were part of what we then called the rebuilding and re-energizing of Antioch College. Bob was a college alum, had an illustrious career in media, and was excited to return. Some things about Bob remain powerful in my memory all these years later. His incredible commitment to students, his energy, and his passion for people in the college. During one of the more difficult years in my work at Antioch, Bob did not flinch from being a truth teller. He trusted that I would listen to him and join him in some of the difficult decisions we had to face. I once told someone, maybe Bob himself, that he was like a Pied Piper with students. They loved him as much as they loved him and would follow his leadership. In 1996, Bob took on one of the more difficult roles in higher education, becoming interim president of the college in the midst of a leadership crisis and recovering from a serious illness. He did an exceptional job of leading the faculty, students, and administrators during that period. Not long after I retired as chancellor of the university, maybe a couple of years later, Bob was appointed as president, and the interim title was deleted. At his formal inauguration, I remember thinking, and I may have even told Bob, that he had been so successful as president that the best thing he could do was retire as president and go back to the faculty. That what he had already achieved would be the height of his success as the college leader. I was not really that serious, but it is true of most presidents at value-driven and rambunctious colleges that one accumulates negatives as the years go by, especially if one is successful and creates good feelings in the first few years. I had some personal experience with that reality. Bob became a friend over the years, and we served together, and I always had enormous respect for him as a person and college leader. I was also thankful that we got along so well, as being a target of Bob's ire was not a comfortable position. At 84, which I now am, I do know the sadness of watching the once powerful face the inevitable. We are all faced with being on this earth for a short period of time. I believe that what we all need to do is remember to celebrate the passion and vision of the lives that have been well lived. While many grieve Bob's loss, especially Callie and his children, it is most important to celebrate his devotion to so many people, the good work to which he devoted so much of his energy, and the good life he lived. That is his legacy. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Larry Brickman, and I was the financial aid director here from 1999 until 2004, I think. So I came from Antioch University in Los Angeles, and when I first got here, I thought I was crazy. So I met Bob. Bob came in and he said, congratulations. And I've always been one to want to make change when it comes to financial aid, students, and all that other stuff. So, but I never met a man like Bob. I worked with many presidents, but he was a president that wasn't a president. He was down to earth, he was friendly, he was supportive like crazy. So I was able to achieve a lot of my goals for the office, and I fell in love with him and Callie. They are two of the most incredible people I've met. I felt like home when I came to Ohio. And to be honest, I didn't know really where Ohio was until I got here. So it was a big change. I needed to get out of California, and this has been home ever since. And I love you both very much.
Hi, my name is Ann Boland, and I was a filmmaker for many years, and in the early 90s, things were not looking so good for independent filmmaking. It's getting harder and harder to raise money. I just finished a film with my co-producers and co-directors called Blood in the Face, which was about racists in the United States. And so I was kind of at loose ends. And somebody who was a friend of Bob's, whose name I don't remember right now, sadly, who lived in New York and was a friend of mine in New York, said, they're looking for somebody to come and teach at Antioch for a semester because of the person who was here before was leaving. So I thought, well, maybe I can teach, I don't know. So I called Bob. Bob came to New York. We met in New York, and he, invited me to come and show Blood in the Face at the college. And then after that, he offered me a position for a semester. And I thought, well, I'm at loose ends. I grew up in Ohio. I'm just going to come back to Ohio and do that. And so I did. And I had 7 senior projects to lead. That was I was like, what? And would you help them make a film in 4 months? What was it, 5 months? Okay, fine. So somehow I was able to do that. I was able to work with the students. I loved working with them. I loved working in the basement of McGregor, which used to be the rat house, and it turned into the comm departments, editing rooms and production center and lounge. And I just loved all the students, and they were all able to make their films, and we showed them at the Little Art. And it was just an amazing process that I couldn't even believe that I went through. And then Bob offered me a job. And since I didn't have a job then, I said, okay, I'll try it. And that was what brought me to Antioch, and I taught there for 13 years, and I was happy as can be. With all my students, I love the faculty that I worked with, and there are always problems that raise their ugly head from time to time, but we were able to work within that. And, it was just so sad when the college went through the process of closing, and I'm so glad it reopened. Anyway, I loved Bob. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Anna Hogarty. I see a lot of faces out here that I know from my past life at Antioch. I worked with Bob when he was president. I came back to Antioch to work in the president's office in 1995. And within that year, that president had left, and Bob came over to the president's office. In the 13 years that I worked in that president's office, I worked under, above, sideways with 7, either interim, acting, real presidents, unreal presidents. You got it. I'd like to remind you that Bob had an experience of Antioch as a student, as an alum, as a staff member when he was in the AV department, as a faculty member, and as president. So because of those experiences, lifetime enriching experiences, it gave him the opportunity to relate to everyone. That was his gift. He also was the longest tenured president that sat in the president's office in those 13 years that I worked in the office. Keep that in mind. Just one other thing that I'd like to say. The frog. He gave us staff members, Sally Fry and myself, a little frog, a metal frog that he got at Sam's shop. I still have that frog. I kiss it every morning. I named him Thor. I learned so much from Bob, and I think he might have learned a little bit from me, as he learned a little bit from each and every one of us. Thank you. I didn't cry.
Oh, there's got to be somebody else.
Hi, I met Bob and Callie through daycare with Eamon when he was about 2 years old. So I knew Bob as a really big kid, and he saw him spoil every child that came in his path for many, many years. So I got to know him in a whole different way. But my favorite Bob story is when we're out in front of his house, and there's the kids about this tall, and me and Callie, and he's shooting off bottle rockets. And one of them falls over and it goes sideways straight toward a car that's coming down the road. And everybody screams. And I look around and Bob is gone. I mean, he left the women and the children and he was nowhere to be found. So, I love Bob. Oh, and I got a frog, too.
Hi. So my name is Zan Avery, and I was one of Bob's advisees when he first came back to the college in 88, I think 88. And I never met a better, kinder professor, teacher, mentor in my life. And I think there are probably thousands of Antiochians that would say the same thing. I don't know what my path would have been if I hadn't met Bob, but I know that it would have been different than it ended up being. And just the way that I look at the world was changed so radically by his classes and his advising role, if you want to call it that, because he was my advisor. And I was his TA for a year or two, and he just was so genuinely interested in the students like me that he helped. I didn't have a lot of experience of that kind of genuine interest and kindness. I don't think it's not that common to have somebody that is that good to people and genuinely cares that much about the students and people that he works with every day. So I've always thought about Bob almost like, not quite a second dad, but who I wish was my second dad. And it's so hard to believe he's gone, but it's a huge gift having had him in my educational life and in my life in general. So thank you, Callie. You and Bob were so kind to me. So thank you. And wish Bob, if Bob is here, thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I am married to Bob's second son and mother of 2 of his grandchildren. And, from intellectual debates where, yes, he knew something about everything and a lot about a lot, but never made me feel stupid, which I'm good at, and chats over jigsaw puzzles and countless teaching moments that didn't feel like teaching moments, but they were, to family vacations in Duck and Stowe in huge houses, lots of fun, including the first time I met Bob in Stowe, when the marshmallow fight that broke out made me kind of wonder what I was doing with this guy here. I stuck with him anyway. And one other thing about Bob was the Christmas stockings. So he would give everybody a Christmas stocking that was really like that big and completely stuffed, overflowing with mostly toys and candy and stuff from Mr. Pubs. Is that what that toy store was called? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, I and my children and my husband, of course, were blessed to have Bob in our lives.
Hi, my name is Levi, and I'm gonna try not to cry, but I'm not doing that well. I never had Bob as my own faculty member. I never took a class with him, but I was on ComSil a lot, and we had what feels in my memory like 1,000,000 hours of ComSil together. But mostly I got to know him because I was Eamon's babysitter, starting when Eamon was 7 months old. And Eamon did not love being away from his parents when he was a baby. So, the first handful of times I babysat, he cried a lot. And so I would just, hold him and rock him and bounce him. I would sing to him, we would listen to music, and for a very long time, until finally he was calm and it was peaceful. It was like, yes, we've got it. And then Bob would come home between classes, and he would hide behind the wall, just sort of peeking through a door. And Eamon would catch a glimpse of him and immediately burst into tears again. And then Bob would go, oh shoot, it's not gonna work out today, I'm sorry. And he would take Eamon in his arms, and I would go. And I just, so when I came to Antioch, I knew Bob mostly by reputation, and his reputation was one of greatness. He was beloved as a faculty member, as a former president, and I just loved this model of greatness, which he was as tender and loving and sweet and a really good dad and someone with a heart capable of breaking. And I'm grateful for that model of greatness.
Hi, my name is Jeanne Kay. I was Bob's student towards the end, at the time of the closure and at the time of Nonstop. And during my time, a lot of my fellow students were very disillusioned with everything. We were going through a struggle to see our college dying and really fighting to keep it alive and really fighting to keep what made Antioch alive. And we were often very disappointed by the grown-ups around us. It felt like we didn't really know who was really living and helping us see an example of what we were learning in the classroom. And Bob was really one of the rare exceptions, somebody we could really look up to be a model of integrity, politically and ethically, and also as somebody who was capable of great care. And I think that's really rare in men and in men in power, to be somebody who could do so much emotional labor and, writing 5-page long, letters of recommendations and really long narrative evaluations or feedback on the paper. It just felt like that was so much care. When I was a first year and I didn't know anything about how anything worked in the world, we learned that the community managers didn't have health insurance. And as a first year, I was like, oh, that's so unfair. I'm gonna do something about it. But I didn't know anything about anything. So I was just like, well, I'm just gonna make appointments with people in the president's office, and I'm gonna sit down with them and argue about why CM should have health insurance. And and then I went to Bob, who was my professor in revolutions theory and practice. And I said, Bob, I'm going to the president's office for these appointments. Will you come with me? And I had no idea about Bob's history with Antioch because I was the first year, and I didn't think maybe that's a bit humiliating for him to come with me to these meetings, or maybe he has other things to do. But he said yes, and he came to every single one, and he sat at the table with me while I argued CM should have health insurance. And of course it was Antioch, so CMs did not get health insurance, but I can't remember being supported like that by anybody else at my time at Antioch. So I'm really thankful for that.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris. I met Bob when I was an incoming student who attended his summer leadership class in 2001. I think there might be a couple other people who did that too. I remember being challenged. I remember being inspired. I remember getting a view of the campus and my fellow students and an experience of them that I did not have from just touring the college. I remember his story about the frog and his presentations with magic markers. I remember those very vividly. My life hasn't been what I thought it would be in 2001 or in 2005 or even in 2010, but I will always be grateful for the lessons I learned from Bob, from the things that he taught us, from the time that he spent with us, and for my time at Antioch. So, thank you, Bob Devine. I will forever be in your debt, and I will forever attempt to win that victory for humanity. Thank you.
I'm really glad that all of us gathered here today to honor and remember Bob Devine. I think it's really fitting that we're here on campus because Bob was such a beloved member of the community for so many years as a student, as a professor, as a dean, and as president. But I heard a few more today from the people talking. So that's really deep knowledge of the community. In many of his years of service, the Alumni Association gave him the honor of the J.D. Dawson Award in 2002, and in 2019 he became an appointed Professor Emeritus. While I didn't know Bob personally, I do know he was passionate about his alma mater, Antioch College. And I also know that he had made innumerable contributions to the community, and he had an unshakable commitment to this community with our values of social justice and community governance. It's because of people like Bob Devine that I became interested in finding a role here at Antioch. We who come after stand on the shoulders of the people who came before, and I'm very humbled to be standing here now. Bob Devine, this community misses you. But your work, you and your work, and your legacy will never be forgotten.
I have our grandchild, one of 3 in my lap. This is Simon, and I'm thrilled to have him in my lap. And I'm very happy that they all got to meet and spend time with Bob. But I want to thank you all for sharing these stories. I'm Callie. I'm assuming you all know that, but I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Bob had so many lives and so many relationships. And I just wanted to share that going through some of the artifacts, and he has many. The man often talked about wanting to work in, Office Depot, because that to him would just be a dream job, because he loves files and labels, and it just was so annoying because I was so the opposite, which is why we had separate bank accounts. But and in fact, one of the things he said to me toward the end was, "Please don't fuck up our bank accounts." No promises there. But he kept so much from the people that he stayed connected to, and there were so many of you, just tons of letters. He would 3-hole punch them and put them in a binder. He saved everything. So videos and cassettes and things that I can't even find the equipment to play anymore, and he really cared. He kept every correspondence that he and I shared with each other and gave me this, 4-inch binder. He was a storyteller, as you know. And so for him, these were all artifacts and part of the oral tradition and the oral history, and they had meaning. So I just wanted to share that because I think it's kind of amazing that he did see all of you, and he did celebrate every one of your accomplishments as students, but then after you left as well. So thank you all for sharing so many wonderful stories. And I know there may be others who want to share, but we would love to have you come to our house, to the backyard for a reception, and just continue to share stories. So I wasn't planning on speaking, but I'm going to do the tradition, which is in the Quaker tradition. Shake hands or do whatever you're comfortable, rub elbows with the person next to you, and thank you.